let's talk about Batman. So, The Brave and the Bold, we're still waiting on hearing what's going on with that movie. Have they written a script? Have they decided to start looking at actors who's going to play the new Batman? I know some people were thinking it's going to be Robert Pattinson, but Matt Reeves is doing his own thing. I do feel like because Matt Reeves came before the whole James Gunn situation when he came in and took over, these two need to figure out what the hell they're going to be doing with this whole situation. They haven't figured it out yet. They're soon they're going to have to merge things and figure out what they're going to be doing with that. But nevertheless, I'm liking what Matt Reeves is doing. I just hope that they give him one more movie after this one so he can complete his trilogy and then they can move on to the next thing. But I don't want to be waiting 10 years for a Brave and the Bold situation. So, Comic Book Movie put together this list of 7 actors who could play the DCU's Batman, since Robert Pattinson is not going to be their DCU Batman. And also, I went and put my own list together. So, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting how to do my own show? Where is it? No, that's not what I wanted to do. Did I forget how to do it? Like, oh, it's probably because I have so many things open. Wait, hold on. Let me see. Oh, now I got it. It's like sometimes when you be forgetting how to do your own thing, because I want to share the channel, I mean, the page with y'all, and we'll just go through each one. But I want y'all to also jump in and figure out, I mean, let me know which people that you feel you would like to see play Batman as well, because I told you I put together my list. So now it says, when DC Studios revealed the movies and TV shows that will be a part of Chapter 1's God and Monsters slate at the start of 2023, The Brave and the Bold was among the biggest surprises. We expected Batman to be included in that, but jumping straight into a story about a hero training his son Damian as Robin is undeniably intriguing. Matt Reeves, The Batman Part 2 will be released in theaters in 2027, and DC Studios co-CEO and Superman director James Gunn has said repeatedly that Robert Pattinson will not don the cape and cowl in the DCU. So who should play this iconic character? Now, we're expecting Batman to be a little older than David Corenswet's Man of Steel, so that automatically eliminates a lot of otherwise exciting possibilities. This role isn't an easy one for any actor to make their own, given the baggage it brings with it, but we believe any of the choices listed below would do right by its character and be very different from Pattinson's brooding vigilante. So number 7, they picked, hold on, like Richard Madden. Now, like Richard Madden, as y'all know, is from Game of Thrones. He was also in oh my god, why can't I remember the name of the movie? Eternals. Thank you. I knew if I scrolled down, I would know what movie it was. Eternals was cute. I've seen it like once. I haven't went back to it since. I've always liked Richard Madden. He's always been in a lot of really cool movies or whatever. So I like him. Do I see him as Batman? There's a possibility I could see him as Batman. I don't know if he'd be chosen. I mean, I would actually like to see him as James Bond, to be honest. But if they were to go with him, I would not be so mad at him being chosen, especially with him being on Game of Thrones. Now, number 6. Now, y'all already know this has been my choice since they've been talking about it a lot. Brandon Sklenar. Now, Brandon Sklenar is somebody maybe a lot of you aren't familiar with. I know him from 1923, the show with Helen Mirren, Dame Helen Mirren, and Harrison Ford. He is really good on that show. But if you really want to kind of get a sense of that Batman-esque, that sense of gravitas when he walks into a room, that suave sexiness, like he could be very brooding and mysterious, I definitely feel like Brandon Sklenar can sell that if you see the movie Drop. I wanted to go see that, and the movies never got around to it, so I waited a little bit until it popped up on, I think it was on one of the streaming services. I think it might have been on, I don't remember where it is. I think it's on either HBO Max or Peacock. It's on one of those damn streaming services. So I happened, because I told y'all, I am a subscriber to way too many streaming services. But so I went over and I actually went and watched it, and I had a really good time with the movie, and I thought that it was a really good Hitchcockian type of thriller, and he was really good in it for the part that he played. So if Brandon Sklenar was chosen, I would definitely I wouldn't be mad at them for that. He definitely skewers old, even though I think he is much younger than David Corenswet. Wait, actually he's not. I think Brandon Sklenar's in his 40s. David Corenswet is like, I think 33, 34, something or another. I think Brandon Sklenar's in his 40s, if I'm not mistaken. Now, number 5, They said Taron Egerton. Now, as much as I love Taron Egerton, I've loved him ever since the Kingsman movies and that sort of thing. However, for this movie, I don't see him as Batman. Number one, I don't know. He reads short, even though I think he's about 5'8", 5'9". He does read short to me on screen. And I believe that more people have said that they feel they could see Taron Egerton as Wolverine before they could see him as the Batman. So I honestly don't. I mean, as much as I like Taron, and you want to know something? Based on a recent interview he did, I think it was with the Happy Sad Confused podcast, he's not going to do it because he's talking about that he doesn't like all that attention that he's been getting, like when you're an actor and you try to do like these big major movie roles, whatever. But I think if you're struggling for a little coin, he probably would do it. But he's like, because I know they've thrown his hat in the ring to play James Bond, a bunch of other stuff. And he's kind of just been like a little hesitant and wanting to take that on because he's like, I like my anonymity and all that other stuff. So the way he was talking, like he wouldn't be down for that kind of attention or wanting to deal with that kind of attention, especially in a role like Batman. Now, number 4, they said Luke Evans. Now, I like Luke Evans. We know he could do action. He's been in a lot of really interesting films. You know, even though he's gay in real life, that shouldn't even matter because quiet as it's kept, there's a lot of homosexuals in Hollywood that y'all don't even know sleep with men, but present straight on camera. So Luke has been somebody who's been very openly gay with who he is. Now, I feel like if y'all want to do Batman or him as Batman, you already know I've been saying how many times about the Authority in here, where they did mention, well, James Gunn has mentioned, they do want to make a live action Authority movie. So if they do decide to go there where you have your own queer version of Batman and Superman, I can definitely see where they're a couple. I could definitely see Luke Evans in that world versus in this film. Because I like Luke Evans and I think he could play, he's played gay, he's played straight, he's played a villain, he's played a hero. Like he's basically a jack of all trades and very versatile when it comes to, now I don't know about his sex life, but I know that he's pretty versatile in his acting abilities. So as far as like Batman, I don't see him as Batman, but I could definitely see him as a Batman as character in The Authority. So if that's where they want to go with that, then they can go with that. Now we have Winston Duke. Now, if we get ourselves M'Baku as the Cape Crusader, I actually wouldn't mind that. I know some people, well, we can't have Batman being black. That I can't do the race swapping. Now, I feel like because Batman is such old IP, and if you're trying to rejudge it for the newer, like this generation, it's the same thing I said about Magneto. Magneto, when they made the original X-Men live action movie, that was about 20 some odd years ago. So the Holocaust didn't feel like it was 100 something odd years ago because that literally happened like, what was that, like the 1920s or something or another? So yeah, we are like 100 years into the whole Holocaust situation. You can't have a Magneto that's like 100 years old doing mutant stuff. Like it logically wouldn't make sense. So like if you're trying to take old IP of a historical situation, if you're trying to bring it up now, you could have a black family or whatever from old money, because this would be enough time where you can have a wealthy black family following that same ideal of a Batman type situation. So I wouldn't be mad in that whole situation, but people get so caught up in race and things, how things look in a comic book, that that's what they want to stick with. So they're not willing to be open-minded in that way. And I feel like, yeah, when you come out with a comic book that came out like the 50s and 60s and it's taking stuff from like the 20s and all this other stuff, or something that's older than that, and you're talking about 2025, you do have to kind of update it a little bit because the time situations are different and it's not going to work. Like you can't have a character that's still in that whole old mindset. So evolving it, and they change things in comic books all the time. I mean, we have a black Superman, which they were talking about. When they talking about that Michael B. Jordan was going to play a black Superman at one point, and we've even had a black Robin. Well, maybe a lot of y'all don't know this, but Marlon Wayans was cast as Robin in one of the Batman movies, but they cut his scenes and stuff out. He still gets residuals for it, so his scenes and things were cut from that. But Winston Duke, I like Winston Duke. I definitely would love to see him in like leading a superhero franchise of some sorts, if they were to go black with Batman, which I don't think they ever would, because Hollywood is always worrying about the negative aspects of like a couple of trolls. They're always worrying about them being all pissed off rather than, okay, is there an interesting story here? They won't. I don't feel like they'll go along with it. So as much as I would like to see Winston Duke, I don't feel like theoretically it will happen. But they were saying that it could also allow a young black or mixed race actor to put their stamp on Robin. But like I said, as I stated before, they've already had a black Robin. I told y'all they had Marlon Wayans was cast as Robin. Now, number 2, they picked Lee Pace. Now I love Lee Pace. I don't know if y'all see the show Foundation. It's in its 3rd season. It's on Apple TV Plus. Great show. But I've always loved Lee Pace. There was a show that he was Pushing Daisies. The first time I saw him on that show, that's when I fell in love with Lee Pace. And the fact of the matter is, he's a phenomenal actor, very good looking, looks good naked too, and and he's another one who's openly homosexual. So if there ever came a point, like I said, because so we'll go back to what we said about Luke Evans. When they do The Authority, and y'all need yourselves a Batman and Superman, these two could oil wrestle it on out on who's going to play who. But if you want to do that, then you can have Luke Evans and Lee Pace playing Apollo or, Midnighter. So you can figure out who's going to play who when y'all do that movie. So I like Lee Pace, but I don't know if I see him as Batman though. If I've always forgot that he was in the Hobbit trilogy because I don't really remember the Hobbit. I already know they talking about they coming out with they're doing another Lord of the Rings movie, which I heard Ian McKellen, I think it was him. Somebody let it slip that Frodo and him was gonna be up in the damn. I'm like, well, we supposed to know that? Like y'all spilling tea, we supposed to know it. Okay, so now let's get to number 1. Number 1, they chose Jensen Ackles. Now, y'all already know. Well, maybe y'all don't know. I need to stop saying y'all already know because maybe you don't know who's coming up in here. But I am a huge Supernatural fan. Love me some Jensen Ackles. I've loved me some Jensen Ackles ever since he played Sammy Brady's twin over on Days of Our Lives. Yes, I'm taking it that far back. Then he went, after that, he was on a show called Dark Angel with Jessica Alba, which we had heard some tea that I think he spilled it, that he and her didn't really get along, that she was kind of like being a bully towards him because he was like the pretty boy on the show and that sort of thing. But they need to spruce up something over there because the show wasn't working with her stale acting ass. So, pretty to look at, but sometimes I've been looking at Jessica like, girl, you can take a couple acting classes. But Jensen came in, did that. Then he went off and did Supernatural for 15 seasons. And then he's been on The Boys. Now he's got this other show that he's supposed to be doing called Vought Uprising, I think it's called. So yeah, and then I think it takes place in like the 50s. So it's like a prequel of sorts, but it's a whole new story. So it's like him back in the day. So it's another spinoff because we have Gen V coming. The Boys about to air their final season. Who knows when that's going to happen? But I know like the actor that plays Homelander was just talking about how bittersweet it is that he wrapped that whole thing up. But Jensen Ackles, to get back on him, he's played Batman. So if anybody knows and anybody is close enough to do the whole Batman thing, I would say it'd be him because he's voiced Batman in the past. I think he also did the Under the Red Hood. I think he was in that. So, which is a different iteration of Batman. So, oh wait, no, it's Robin. Sorry. So him coming up in there and playing the role of Batman or whatever, I think would be a really good idea. He is 47, I think. So he still looks good. He looks younger than age ain't number the number at the end of the day. He could do physical action. And having him come in, bulk up, and play that role, I definitely think it would be a phenomenal idea they decided to bring him in. He looks like he would be the man that's old enough. I don't know if he has kids in real life. He probably does. But he looks like the type of guy that would have like a 12, 13-year-old son or, a preteen or a teenage son that he would be taking under his wing and basically teaching him the ropes of the individual, of fighting crime and all that other stuff. Like he looks like he would be a Damian Wayne type of pops. So those are the picks that they picked over there at Comic Book. So now let me get to my list. And then we can wrap this up. and then y'all could jump in the comments with whatever list that y'all have. So I did an honorable mention, and some of these that's on this list I've already mentioned. Okay, so my honorable mention would be Richard Madden. Now, I already went through the whole thing with him. I like Richard Madden. He was, from Game of Thrones. He also, I believe, didn't he play the prince in Enchanted? Where they were somebody had to hide his piece in the front because there was a lot of meat between me down. So they had to kind of like make sure it wasn't too much that everybody was seeing that they was exposed to. I'm like, child, not for paid money to say that. Them British Scottish boys, they be packing heat. Okay, so he's my bonus. He's not my top 5. So it's like, yeah, you have like he's my bonus pick. So yeah, I would like to see Richard Madden. I already went through the reasons why in the earlier situation, so we don't need to go over that again. Now, my number 5 pick is Josh Hartnett. Now, I've always liked Josh Hartnett. I've liked him from the beginning. I think his first movie was Halloween H2O, but ever since then, I've always liked him. I liked him as Zeke in The Faculty. Looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with the remake of The Faculty. I believe he, once upon a time, was supposed to be Superman and Brett Ratner's version of Superman. We see the pictures online of him in the Superman costume and stuff. Definitely looked like he could play a really good Superman. I believe I've heard rumors that they were talking about they wanted him to be Batman. So if there ever came a point of Josh Hartnett getting the role as Batman, I would not be surprised by that, especially because there's been a bit of a resurgence in his career. It's like he's kind of been picking roles here and there and kind of remain out of the spotlight. And I think it's because he's a husband and he went and decided to raise his kids. So he's been very picky with a lot of the movies that he's been doing. But even though, damn, what was the name of that M. Night Shyamalan movie where he played a serial killer and he took his daughter to the trap? That movie was god awful, but he was good in it. I also have not seen Fight or Flight, even though I've heard he was good in that as well. I want to see that movie. One of these days I'll get around to it when it pops up on a streaming service because I haven't paid the digital kind of, for the digital renting and all the other stuff, but I've heard he's good in that. So everything that Josh Hartnett is usually in, he's pretty good in. And I would like to see him as Batman, and I definitely think he could pull that off. My number 4 choice is Theo James. Now, I've always liked Theo James, when he was in the Divergent films, even though the Divergent movies wasn't good. He was good in it. I also like Shailene Woodley. Haven't seen her in a while. Then he was also in that Underworld movie where he played a vampire, whatever. He was cool in that movie, even though the movie sucked, but he was good in it. It's funny how these people end up in bad movies, but they actually are good in it. But one of the roles where I really feel like it showcases his acting skills is in that series, The Gentleman, which is a Guy Ritchie situation over on Netflix. That show was pretty good. I liked it. And I think he would make a really good Batman. Now, I also think he'd make a good James Bond. So if he don't ever get the role of Batman, I could definitely see him as James Bond. Now, my number 3 choice, he was mentioned earlier on the list from Comic Book Movie, Brandon Sklenar. Now, I do love me some Brandon Sklenar. I already told you my reasons why. We don't need to go through it again. I just think he's a really good actor. He definitely, I feel like, is versatile in a way where he could play those soft moments and he could also be dark and brooding and mysterious. All the qualifications that you need to play a Caped Crusader like Batman. So I definitely want to see him as, in the role, but there were 2 others that I felt like edged him out, even though I would have made him my number 1. But there's 2 other actors that I feel like really edges him out in that way. Now, my number 2, Jake Gyllenhaal. Now, I would like to see Jake Gyllenhaal. I definitely think that because if you notice, like you've seen him in the Roadhouse remake or so many other movies, and he's been taking on more action roles. He's really bulked up. He definitely looks like he's finally grown into his body, that he could definitely play dark and brooding. He's got the physicality. He definitely held his own in the Roadhouse movie, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I felt like that should have been released in theaters, but they didn't release it that way. I just thought that was dumb on Amazon Prime's part, but I guess the movie did well enough that they're getting a sequel. Now, I don't know if that one's going to be released in the theaters or they still going to follow the same situation. But nevertheless, I'm looking forward to seeing Jake Gyllenhaal now jump into this whole action role space. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he has been up. Like, there's been many talks about him jumping into the role as Batman. The only thing I fear is because he's such a big name that he's going to want a lot of money for playing his part. Because, like, with David Cornsweet. David Cornsweet, if I'm not mistaken, was paid $300,000 to play Superman, and that's because he's not a relatively well-known actor. Jake Gyllenhaal is somebody who's been around for a long time, from like Donnie Darko on down. So he's been acting, and we've been familiar with Jake Gyllenhaal for at least a good 20 years. So he's been around for a minute, so he could demand that kind of money. If it was me and I'm really passionate about this movie, I would take a pay cut, because then some people could say the same thing about, well, Ben Affleck played Batman. He was a well-known name. He's an Oscar winner. He's all those things. So why can't Jake Gyllenhaal do it? What makes you think that he's going to come in and demand $10 million to play Batman? I think for the sake of the film and the passion behind it, whatever, I don't think he'd come out and be greedy. I could be wrong, because we know Hollywood is full of egos and this, that, and the other. That's just me and my naive brain that hopes and prays that if he were to get the part, that he would kind of like just, okay, I'll take this much money. I'll take extra, like if, based off the back end or whatever, I can get a percentage of that, how much, the ticket gross, whatever the case. If you can negotiate that, which I think is what Robert Downey Jr. ended up doing. Now they done backed up the Brinks truck, and I've heard they paying him a ton of money to play Dr. Doom, and y'all better hope that it delivers, because if it doesn't, and y'all pay that man all that money, then y'all just throwing money around and wondering why y'all can't recoup the type of money that y'all need to be recouping. So I'm hoping that we can get Jake Gyllenhaal, but I do worry if with financial negotiations, that might ruin the situation. So, and my number one that I have of a choice, who I would like to see play Batman, we didn't mention him, Jensen Ackles. Now, this outfit is literally his new costume for that show, Vought Uprising, that I was telling y'all about. This is him as, oh my God, who is the character that I totally forgot the name of the character that he plays on The Boys, which is sort of like a Captain America type of character. But yeah, this is the costume that he has. I guess that was the costume from like back in the day of what he's wearing. So I'm like, you clearly can see he's really good at dressing the part of a superhero. Put the mask on him. He definitely has like that big pouty lower lip. He could definitely pull off the whole Batman situation. I would definitely love to see Jensen Ackles. I just feel like some people will come in well, I don't know if I want to see a supernatural, a CW actor playing this. I'm like, who cares what channel he was on? He's an actor. Actors are supposed to act, but people want to sit and judge you basically off of the network you were on, the channel you were on, the quality of the show you were on, and not really looking at the overall performance. And to me, when you look at Jensen Ackles, somebody who could do like self-deprecating, sarcastic banter, like he could deliver a one-liner. We've seen the silly side. Like when you watch Supernatural, everything doesn't always follow this one linear storyline. There's sometimes they go on little side quests, and they'll do like the little slapstick comedy inspired episode, and you'll see Jensen's comedic side come out. You'll see the dark, serious, brooding, mysterious side come out. So it requires, when you're doing 22 episodes of a show, a season, you have to be able to hit all those beats and be versed in the type of what you need to bring to the character you're doing, especially if you're playing that character for damn near 20 years, 15 to be exact, but almost 20 damn years. So to recap my situation, my bonus pick was Richard Madden, but my top 5 was Josh Hartnett. Number 4 is Theo James. Number 3 is Brandon Sklenar. Number 2 is Jake Gyllenhaal. And number 1, we have Jensen Ackles. So those are my choices, and I definitely want to hear from y'all in regards to this story. We went through comic book movies, 7 actors who could play the DCU's Batman, since they say Robert Pattinson's out of the running. Do you agree with their choice? Do you agree with some of my choices? And what are your choices? I definitely want to hear from y'all, so drop it down, in the comments down below.